Welcome back to another episode of the Budget Overland Podcast. I'm your host, Benji, and in studio today we've got Matt McClellan. He is no stranger to overlanding. I'm sure a lot of you guys out there are familiar with his videos on YouTube. Matt, how the heck are you, man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good, man. I'm glad this finally worked out. I've been wanting to get you on the show for a minute there, and I know with your schedule, traveling all the time, especially in the summer times with all the expos, it's quite
Yeah.
challenging for you, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Right now I'm in kind of my what I call my Ozark season. We have no major travel plans for a while, except for a vacation, and then we have a Patreon event that we're hosting at Maris Adventure Park in December. But other than that, we're home and chilling and enjoying the Ozarks again.
That's good. Nice reboot, I guess, refresh, I guess, more or less.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, the main reason why I wanted you on the show, and a lot lately in your videos, you've always kind of talked about, like, just reminding people, like, look, like, I didn't just go out the gate and spend all this money on all this stuff, all the bells and whistles and everything.
Right.
And, so I asked you, I said, why don't you come on the show and let's talk about the origins of Ozark Overland Adventures, and then Matt on how you got involved with it, and then kind of going down the YouTube, avenue. A lot of people out there think it's real easy work and anyone can be YouTube famous. So we'll touch on that also. Just clear the air, because a lot of times, I started Budget Overland, what was it, 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago. And as a Facebook group, as me just to have an outlet to post certain things here and there. And of course, budget means cheap and inexpensive, but it also means budgeting for the right gear, making smart decisions, having a better or bigger travel budget than, a gear budget or whatever your preference is. So with all that, we'll just kind of dive in back to the origin. And your YouTube channel, isn't it like 10 years old or something like that? You've been uploading videos for a minute, but not as serious as the last few years.
I mean, I actually started, I created a YouTube account in 2010 as a means to just upload stuff for Facebook. Facebook did not allow larger video files to be uploaded to it, so I created a YouTube account just to be able to then share the link in Facebook and places to for family and friends to be able to see the videos I was making. Came up with the name Ozark Overland Adventures in 2015, and in 2015 officially changed the name on YouTube from whatever my name was, whatever my account was, to Ozark Overland Adventures. And I think it was in 2015 that we decided to create a logo and actually make it something.
Yeah.
So that happened in 2015.
So your background, from my understanding, and not, I'm sure everyone that followed you and watched your channel and stuff, you're big in photography. You're a graphic designer. So that's kind of
Right.
your creativeness. I'm kind of built the same way, where you kind of go out and you just paint a picture, if you will, for that trip or whatever, just document
Right.
it. So where did your love for capturing trips come from and editing? Was it just kind of the funness for you, or what was all the background to that?
I mean, the background started with photography. I've loved photography for years. And in 2000, I guess 2007? No, 2005. I got my first real camera, a digital SLR, and just fell in love with. I was an avid hiker back then too, and so fell in love with hiking and nature photography, especially here in Arkansas, photographing all the waterfalls that we have.
Oh yeah.
And so loved doing that. And then, at that point, I had three daughters and had a sensible four-door family car. And it wasn't getting me to as many trailheads as I would have liked. There were
Yeah.
some trailheads that I just couldn't take that car to. And so in 2012, it was time for that car to be replaced, and bought a used 2008 four-door Jeep, four-door Wrangler, and bought it with I've always loved Jeeps ever since I was a kid, but until the four-door Wranglers came out, having a TJ didn't make a really sensible
Right.
family car. So when the four doors came out, that dream was back on, and when it was time to replace my my sensible four-door family car, I got the four-door Jeep with the intent of keeping it stock and just using it to get to trailheads for hiking purposes that I couldn't get to with my car. And I had no idea what I was getting myself into.
That's all it took was getting the Jeep and then
Yeah, and then
driving to those remote places.
yeah, and then from there, I just fell in love with exploring the Ozarks. Um, and seeing places that most people don't see anymore because they don't venture off the pavement. I
Yeah.
was just stunned at the beauty on a lot of the back roads in Arkansas, and just fell in love with it.
So without jumping too far forward, and this is a stretch because every time, like for me, I would rather drive the 3 or 4 or 5 hours to Arkansas down the Ozarks, and I've never really been to the Ouachitas at all because going from my driveway all the way down to like say Cass Oark area, the kind of the
Hmm.
central point, it's about a 4.5 hour drive for me, and then you could
Right.
go off in any direction and have a great time. But I just want to be a little nosy and see how many miles have you documented being out there. It could be
Oh
anywhere in
gosh,
Arkansas. Explore. Have you
I
ever
don't
done that?
I have no idea. I've never looked at of course I have so many tracks that in Gaia that overlay on top of previous tracks, and so I have no idea. I know. I mean, I have pretty much documented. I would say I would guess 95 or more percent of through trails in the
Mm-hmm.
Ozarks. When I look at my Gaia, like this trip I just got back from, I opened up my Gaia to see where have I not been, and
Mm-hmm.
that's where I saw this one trail that was connects 2 points that I've been to before, but there's two other trails that kind of go around it. I've always taken those trails and not this trail.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I'm always looking at where have I not been, and that's getting really hard to find.
Right.
I'm sure there's some county roads that I haven't been on, but as far as Forest Service roads, um, the through trails. So there's a whole bunch of little out, just little dead end trails that I
Mm-hmm.
haven't been down, and I
Yeah.
guess I'm just gonna start going down those.
Yeah.
All of
That's
those in the Ozarks have led to disappointment. So I'm kind of, I think those dead end trails should end in some, epic campground, or if you're in Colorado and there's a dead end trail, you've got a good chance that there's a campsite at the end of that one.
yeah.
But not in Arkansas. It may just end in a clearing. That's not it's not a place for camping. It may just absolutely dead end. That's
Yeah.
happens all over the place. They may just be there to get to someone's hunting spot.
Yeah.
So
All right. I was just curious because of all the people. Surely you're up there with exploring a lot of it, and the amount of time you've been out there. I was just curious for myself, and I'm sure the listeners
yeah,
are.
I don't know how many miles that is. I have no clue.
That's crazy. All right, now let's back rewind again all the way back to your beginnings. So you got your Jeep to go to remote places to go hiking. Where did the camping aspect and the wheeling aspect start coming from? Around that time, or was it a little bit after?
About that time, after I discovered this love for exploring the Ozarks, I I had a little bit of a video background and knew how to edit and stuff because I was working in a church as a media pastor, basically. Um, and that's where I started learning to edit and put videos together. So I instead of taking photos, I bought a GoPro and I would just film. And um, my very first video, it's still on YouTube, but it's not listed anymore
Mm.
because it uses music that's copyrighted.
Oh, no
Um,
kidding. All right.
but it is literally, I mean, it is the typical first YouTube video dash cam on the dash and
Yeah.
looking at the hood, and that's the whole video is just that.
Yeah.
Um, and gosh, from there, I would start going out with friends, and I enjoyed filming it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it just kind of grew from there. Just very naturally. I never had any intention of setting out to do anything significant with YouTube
Mm.
until 2020. That's when
Yeah.
that turned.
So, I mean, a lot of people are familiar with you and your story and how you and Kara want to do this as your full time retirement, live this lifestyle.
Right. We want to travel full time.
Travel full time.
Mm-hmm.
And then you said, I don't know when you said this, but you kind of really grew a lot during the COVID time. And then you're like, oh crap, that was, quote unquote, easier than I thought. So now you're just rolling.
It was very
with
unexpected. Yeah.
Okay. If you want to talk through that process.
So it was in 2020. My channel was growing to almost to the point of being monetized. So that 1,000 subscribers in 2020. And Karen and I just had this dream that, and at that point it was a 5-year plan. In 5 years, when our youngest graduated and went off to college, we want to travel full time. And so as I was getting close to that monetization piece, I thought, okay, I can start getting serious and really putting some effort into the videos that I'm making. Try to actually, tell the story, not just show the scenery. And I've got, surely in 5 years, I can grow it enough so that can be what sustains us living on the road full time. And that was in 2020, and it was in August of 2021 that I quit my day job.
Wow.
And started doing YouTube full time. So it happened much faster than I thought it would, which was crazy.
That is crazy. And not only are you, quote unquote, ahead of schedule, now you're constantly having to change it up to be fresh, so good content, different content, because it's just like anything, nobody wants to watch the same thing. And then I'm sure you second guess some of your stuff. You're like, oh, I hope people are wanting to watch this. And then recently I feel like you're like, yeah, I'm having fun. You're either watching with us or you're not. You're either growing with us or you're not. So I'm sure that was stressful too, maybe quitting your job, knowing that you had the sustainable ability to do this still, but you're still ahead of schedule. If that's coming across, if that's making any sense, because now you're like,
oh yeah,
yeah,
that was hard to figure out. We'd gotten to the point throughout that early summer, late spring, early summer of 2021. The YouTube revenue between YouTube, Patreon, affiliate sales, the few channel sponsors that we had then, between all those revenue streams, our YouTube income was matching, and a couple months a little bit exceeding what my day job, which was IT sales at the time, what my day job was bringing in. So,
wow.
At that point, the dual income, it was real nice. But we were, at the beginning of July, we were told by our manager that everybody was coming back to the office on August 1st. And I was like, oh crap. I mean, because, we were all working from home because of COVID. Right. My manager knew that I was making videos while I was also working. He didn't care what I was doing as long as I was hitting my numbers, which I was. And so he didn't care. But the possibility of going back to the office, I was like, okay, I can either go back to the office and keep the safe day job, and absolutely kill the channel, because at that point I was putting out 2 videos a week. I was taking off. I had a lot of vacation time in that job, so I was taking days off once a week and going out and making my trip videos for Fridays, and I was shooting gear reviews in the garage for my Tuesday videos. And so I was like, okay, I'll be lucky if I go back to the office. I'll be lucky if I get 1 video a week out. And if I'm able to do that, it will be, going out on the weekends to shoot something. It will be editing at night, not being able to spend any time with Kara or my kids. And it would, I knew it would just kill the channel because I would not be able to produce the content. Or I could quit my day job and just go all in on YouTube and see what happens. And it paid off.
Crazy.
It was a good risk. And so yes, at that point, I had not explored hardly, even close to everything in the Ozarks. So that became my goal, is let's start documenting the Ozarks. Yeah. And then the next year it was okay. I've done most of that. Let's go see what the Washita's have in store.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that a lot in 2022. Plus, with we hit in 2017 we started the tradition of taking big, we take 10 days off from then work and go to Colorado or go to Utah.
Yeah.
And I would take those trips and come home with, you know, 6, 7 videos from that trip to throw in different content. Um, so yeah, so that's how I was able to pull that
That's pretty
off.
wild. So going back to just being, I don't want to say budget, but maybe basic, kind of getting into it with your gear. I mean, you said you're kind of a backpacker hiker. Did you kind of carry some of that equipment over with your overlanding, your camping? How did that look back at your, I guess your beginnings?
Yeah, I fell in love with hammock camping
Mm,
um, early on. And so that's what I would, if I'd go out to the woods and was spending the night, I'd sleep in my hammock.
mm,
And have, I remember one trip Karen and I did together back when we were dating. It was actually our first multi-night kind of overlanding trip through the Ozarks together. Um, we were both sleeping in hammocks. I think that may have been Kara's first time to sleep in a hammock like that.
mm.
And one of the nights it got down to 17 degrees.
Wow.
But we had the equipment, and so we were warm and cozy in there. And I mean, that was just an incredible trip. So, I mean, living in the back of, having a JK, and at that point, I had my black Jeep, which is what I mean. I don't think there's not any videos of my original silver Jeep on there. But at that point, I had my black JK, and it had a slant back top, so I even had less space than a normal JK because I lost half the top of the back. Um, so yeah, I had to get. I mean, I had a hammock and you know good sleep and a decent sleeping bag, and had a fridge and had some stuff to cook with, and that's pretty much. And of course, I had recovery gear in there as well
Mm-hmm.
and some tools. And that was it. That's all I took with me.
That's all you need, really. I mean, a lot of
That's
people
all you need.
and a
Yeah,
lot of
that's all
people
you need.
they overthink that real soon because they're comparing themselves to someone like you that's been doing it for 8, 10, 12 years or whatever, and and we've talked about it a little bit, like
Yeah, go back and
you
watch the early videos on there, and you'll see me.
right.
Just I've got a Coleman's Walmart stove and
Mm-hmm.
sleeping in a hammock and making it work.
Yeah, I always tell people on the show, it's like we're all on different journeys, and things that work for me aren't going to work for you, and vice versa. And that can come down even from a fridge to a cooler to your sleeping gear, whatever, anything. So I think a lot of people, once they go out and they're always like, what do I need? Which they just go out, kind of take your basic stuff, and then write down what would be nice or handy to have, and then
Hmm.
just go from there.
I mean,
So,
yeah, I say it all the time. If you're just going out a few weekends a year because that's what you have time for, because that's
mm-hmm.
what I used to have time for, at you know $30 stove from Walmart. Actually, my first stove, it was an Ozark Trail stove. I bought it at a garage sale for $5, and that served me for probably a year until it finally died. Um, I bought sleeping bags from garage sales. Actually I made my first underquilt for my hammock
Mm,
with a $5 sleeping bag from a garage sale, and then bought some cinch cord off Amazon and made it work.
nice.
um, but if you're just going out for a few weekends a year, I mean, you don't even need a fridge for that. An ice chest will
Mm-hmm.
last a weekend just fine. It's when you start getting into the longer multi-day trips and going out more often, that's when the better quality and the nicer gear really comes in handy. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, setting up, for me, setting up a ground tent, um, back when my kids would go with me, we had this cheap pop-up ground tent from Walmart. Setting that up over a weekend, that's no big deal. You go on a 1 week, 2 week trip through Colorado, and you're changing campsites every night, and every time you get to camp, you have to spend 30 minutes to an hour setting up camp and then reversing that process the next morning. That's when it becomes a pain in the butt. And you're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh my gosh, there's got to be an easier way. And
Yeah.
that's when a hard shell rooftop tent that you can open up and boom, be in bed in 2 minutes. That's when that comes into that. That's when
Yeah.
that starts to have value.
It's crazy to think, even back in 2015 and early as 17, the amount of gear available on the market stateside was very kind of minimal, and you were kind
Oh
of
yeah.
stuck with certain things. So it's now kind of cool and fun to see the wedge style, tents. Even the Gazelle T4s and stuff like that are really popular. But it seems like there's a ton more options today, obviously
Oh, it's
because there's
crazy.
there's a huge boom in it, but like even 5 years ago, because I kind of got started 4 or 5 years ago, just kind of, I was watching your videos and watching some other guys, and I was like, man, that just looks like a blast just to go out, sightseeing, not doing anything crazy, kind of camping, just the hangout, of your friends, and then nature, it's just gorgeous. But I really got bit by that bug, but then slowly kind of, it's a stupid expensive hobby. You got to build out your rig. You got to you got
Yeah, it
to
can
outfit
be.
it with what works for you. So it's like really, really overwhelming to a lot of people. And I love seeing that there's a lot of families now getting involved with it, not just kind of like guys on the weekend. I love seeing the kids and going with their dads, or even getting the
Hmm.
wives involved and stuff like that. Do your kids like to go with you? I understand now they're a little bit older, but do they
Yeah.
still enjoy going out with you? They enjoy the
Um,
nature side of it.
they do. I mean, at this point, they like the idea of it, but they are teenagers and they
Yeah.
have jobs and boyfriends, and they don't have time for that anymore. I was actually had planned to take my middle daughter, who just graduated and is now in college. We had plans for the last 2 years for
Mm,
her senior trip to just be a daddy daughter, Colorado trip.
yeah.
And well, I mean, and I've been planning it for 2 years, and she, has a job and serious boyfriend now, and when it came time for us to, you know, actually go on that trip, she's like, no, I just don't think so. I still want to do it, but not now. I got to get ready for school, and I don't want to leave my boyfriend behind. And then I was like, oh gosh.
Dadgummit. Yeah.
But when they were younger and didn't have
Sure.
jobs and boyfriends, oh yeah, they loved it.
Yeah. I think that's great. We've got a 6-year-old son, and the whole reason why we've got a rooftop tent is because of him. Because anywhere we would go camping with our friends, or he's always up in the tent, and it's the coolest thing. And I could care less. I prefer like a hammock even. It's easy, it's lightweight, doesn't take up a lot of space, and but anyway, he got that. We'll say it was because of him, but I really
Yeah,
enjoyed
I
it
mean, I
thoroughly.
yeah, I still very much love my hammock, but we started traveling to places where, having trees to attach to
Yeah,
became a challenge. I mean,
yeah.
even where I camped last night, it was it was on an overlook. There were no trees up there.
Hmm.
Um, and so I would not have been able to hammock camp there last night. And I
That's good.
absolutely hate ground tents with a passion. I would rather sleep in my front seat than sleep in a ground tent. And that's all personal preference. There's no,
Sure.
right or wrong with that. It's just personal preference. Some people hate rooftop tents, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But I gravitated the toward the rooftop tent just because we were traveling to places that, having trees to attach to weren't guaranteed.
Hmm.
And that just became, it was super simple. And I got my first rooftop tent when I got my Gladiator. So,
Hmm.
because I was not going to have a rooftop tent on my Wrangler. I
Yeah, that's
didn't I
right.
didn't want it top heavy.
Yeah, looking back, I forget that. You did a lot of hammock camping, and even in the cold weather, if it was pouring down rain, whatever. But
Hmm.
it is what it is. I think that's great. What kind of like meal prep, anything like that you guys enjoy at camp, or do you plan that far ahead as food goes, or what do you guys typically do for
Yeah,
food?
we always plan out what we're going to have, and depending on how long of a trip, we may take it all with us, or we may decide, like when we went to Oregon this summer, I was gone for 3 weeks, so we knew, okay, let's plan, 3 4 days worth of food, and then we're gonna have to get gas, so we'll have to go to the grocery store anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, yeah. I mean, my favorite thing is just a good either ribeye or fillet cooked at camp. I mean, there's something about eating the steak at camp is just phenomenal.
Absolutely.
Last night I made a sandwich. That was it. I made a sandwich. I did warm it up in my skillet to kind of have a hot ham and cheese. But that was as fancy as I got last night was a sandwich. So and it ranges anywhere from any in between. You know, we've made soups at camp before. We've chili is a big one. If we're with a group of people and it's winter time, we'll make chili all the time. Um, Different soups. You know, any all kinds of grilled meats and burgers and brats and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out. I'm not a big food guy. I mean, I am. I love to eat, but like at camp, and that's just like an added chore to me. You
Mhm.
know, some people that they love to just go out and cook.
Yeah.
I'm not that
Sometimes I
guy. I
do,
want,
sometimes I don't.
and a
Last night I
lot of
wasn't in a cooking mood, so I made a sandwich.
there you go. A lot of people have been bringing up the like the food saver shrink packaging, like pre-cooked meals and stuff.
Hmm.
Have you seen an uptick in that? Like from
I mean,
personally going out.
we haven't used them, and we haven't used them on any trip. Um, we don't do a lot of pre-prepping
Yeah.
before the trip. Um, I know some people that do, um, like Regina, Brad's wife, Trail Recon.
Hmm.
She'll meal prep before she comes and do some prep stuff. Our friend Danielle, she loves to camp cook and she'll meal prep and bring like she made um, chicken pot pie in a Dutch oven a couple weeks ago,
Wow.
and that was awesome. But I mean, the
I
chicken
bet.
pot pie mixture, she prepped that at home and brought
Hmm.
that in a Ziploc bag and then put the puff pastry on it and boom, chicken pot pie at camp. It was real good. But you know, I don't. I'm not gonna do any major meal prep. I might, you know, throw chicken in a marinade and then grill it at camp. That's the extent of my meal prep.
Yeah. So you touched on Brad and Regina, and that's got to be kind of trippy too, meeting all these other YouTubers out there. How
It
does
is.
that how
That's
does
really
that
weird.
feel?
Yeah, I mean, of course, you know, I mean, Brad kind of helped start all this, and so early on, I mean, Kara and I were watching Brad when Kara got her second Wrangler. She was using Brad's discount codes with Northridge 4x4 to buy all you know, the lift and stuff to go on it.
Yeah.
Um, and you know bought a lot of stuff that he had because she liked the way it looked. Yeah, the KC light bar that's on my
Yeah.
Gladiator now,
Hmm.
she bought because she liked how it looked on Brad's Jeep.
Yeah.
Yeah, now 7 years ago, whatever long that was, 2015. Um, and so you know, and now getting the chance to you know now Brad's a friend.
Hmm.
Regina and Kara text almost daily, and it's weird.
Yeah. It is.
It's really weird. But I mean, once you get the chance to, you know, sit around a campfire with them, they're just, I mean, they're very much just like the rest of us.
Hmm.
You know, he lucked into, you know, doing this YouTube thing full time, just like the rest of us did. With you know, started doing it just as a way to get out with his boys, and his boys decided, hey, let's record this, and
Hmm.
his son made the first video, and then they decided, let's do this every time we go out. That was cool,
Yeah.
and now they have 500,000 subscribers, and you know,
Crazy.
we're you know living the dream for them. So
That is great. I mean, if you can, I mean, a lot of people, and let's talk about this too. Let's talk about how easy it is to become a YouTuber, because everyone, this is driving me nuts, and I use that tongue in cheek. Obviously, it's a lot of work that goes into it, and it doesn't just happen overnight. There's a lot of sacrifices that you've made. You're talking about working weekends just to go make the content and all this stuff. So let's talk about hindsight. You're putting all this work into it and everything. Do you ever get discouraged? Is there ever a moment, a doubting moment that you're like, oh crap, is this going to sustain? Is it going to continue, or any of that stuff? Or are you just living in the moment, week by week?
that that first season of being full time, you know, at that point I hadn't learned what the seasonality of YouTube channels are. You know, they pick up in the summertime because people are researching places to go, they slump off in the wintertime or when school starts back up. Um, I didn't know at that point in January, ad spending goes in the toilet because companies have invested all their dollars in, getting up to Christmas. And now January, they're figuring out what their new budgets are. And so they're not spending a lot of, ad revenue advertising to, on YouTube. And so ad spending goes way down. So that first January when revenue started to tank
Oh,
from
wow. Yeah, I
YouTube,
bet.
I was like, what's
What's
going on
happening?
here? What's going on? And then by March it picked back up, and I was like, oh, okay, okay. And so there's the
Wow.
seasonality of things, and so I hadn't learned all that yet. So when they came around, when that next January came around, I was like, I wonder if this is going to happen again. And sure enough, it did.
Yeah.
And and at that point, I had some other had made friends with other people that were doing YouTube, like Rob with River Overland.
Mhm.
And so he was ahead of me as far as his channel growth and stuff. And so I was like, so is this normal? He was like, oh yeah, totally normal. I was like, oh,
That's
okay,
good.
good.
That's good that you could collab and reach out to other YouTuber content creators to be like, everyone needs someone in their corner with them, unless you're just so bullheaded you don't need advice from anyone. But I always find it comforting to talk to people like that, get their scoop. Like, oh, you guys, you seeing an influx over here or whatever. And I think
hmm
that's kind of cool that you guys have that.
Yeah, I mean it's weird. I mean even this is still weird because um, myself, Rob, Sean, the Story Till Now, Justin McBride, KC250, um, uh, Taylor with Independence Overland, and some other smaller channels. We're all in a Discord group together. So I
Mm,
mean, we talk and bounce ideas off each other
cool.
daily. Um, you know, and for some of us that have had the chance to meet at expos and stuff, you know, we're now friends. So I haven't met a single YouTuber in this overlanding space that thinks of other YouTubers in this space as competition.
Hmm.
I haven't met anyone that's like that yet.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all friends. We all, like I said, we all want each other to succeed.
Hmm.
Um, and we love the opportunity to go on trips together. It is a lot of fun, and it is really slow to go on a
I'm
trip
sure
with
it is.
with four other
5 different
YouTubers.
YouTubers. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
and
funny.
so we bounce ideas off of it, and like me and Sean, or Karen and Sean and Rob were all in Moab at the same time back in March, and we were all out on the trail together, and at the end of the day, we all pull out our memory cards and our laptops, and we're sharing all of our footage.
Nice.
So I've got Sean's footage, Rob's footage, and they've got all mine and stuff. And but if you watch each one of our videos, they're all very different.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
It's not. You'll see some of the same scenes, but our viewpoint is different, and the way
Hmm.
we tell the story is different. Because our perspectives are different.
Hmm.
Um, so like on the videos where we were all three on Poison Spider, Golden Spike, and Gold Bar Rim, Rob's perspective is he's basically doing it in a stock Jeep, and so he's
Yeah.
telling that story of what that's like. Sean has his new Hemi powered Gladiator, and so he's telling that story, and then I'm telling my version of the story and how much I love the trail and stuff. And so we can all go out, do the exact same trip, and share our footage, but we all come back with completely different videos and different stories.
I
So
love
it's
it.
cool.
And not only that, I like as a consumer or a viewer, it's like, oh, cool, I can go watch this channel now, and it's totally different, but it's still entertaining nonetheless. But
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys have had this conversation, but where do you guys see this overlanding thing headed in the next 3 to 5 years? Do you see it sticking around? And we could get in as deep as you want in this thing, or do you guys
Um, I
Where do you
don't
see it?
I don't see it going anywhere. I think I I think all of us will say that. I know for a fact I know me, Rob, and Sean definitely said, our channels wouldn't be where it is without, without COVID, which sounds horrible because that whole 2 year, 20 and 21 were just nightmares for
Mm-hmm.
everyone. But I mean, that forced people to get outside and
Mm-hmm.
discover the joys of being outdoors. And for some, some hiking, some overlanding, um, but just getting out and seeking those adventures. And I think and obviously some of that, now that businesses are back to doing normal things and everything, some of that has slacked off, and I don't think places are quite as crowded as maybe they were then. But I mean, you still can't book campsites, you know less than 4 months out,
Mm-hmm.
in national parks if you're doing that thing. You go to the popular places like Uray, Colorado, and Moab, Utah. If you go during the peak seasons, it's there's people everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
all over the place, um, and it keeps continues to grow each year. So, I mean, companies are still coming out with new ideas. So companies still see a market there. New rooftop tents are being developed. New camping gear. I mean, look at what's happened with diesel heaters and you know portable air conditioners now.
Yeah.
Um, which would have been unheard of a few years ago. So things that help extend the camping seasons into time periods where normally people aren't going out.
That's a good
So no,
point.
I don't think
Yeah.
it's going anywhere. I think it's just going to keep growing. It may grow at a slower pace, but it's not going anywhere.
I would kind
It's
of,
definitely not a fad.
yeah, I would say to some it looks appealing until they get out and try it, and they might not like it at all.
Right.
But that's, I mean, you're talking maybe, let's say 5%, if that, they're even going to commit to it and fold in like that. But I don't know. I think it's kind of a fun community. It depends. I mean, globally it's fun, but I think the term, and we don't have to go into it too much, but the whole term overland's definitely been thrown around very loosely.
Very
And
loosely.
I think, and it's cringy almost to see it where it's at now, because you've got companies. I just call them pop up companies, just because they know there's a market there and they know they could target that market. Same thing with all these influencers popping up left and right
Hmm.
because they want the free gear or the fame or whatever. I feel like their motives are wrong, but I feel like you can
Yeah,
also tell
that's
that.
that's definitely not all it's cracked up to be.
Well, touch on it as much as little as you want. I don't,
I
whatever's
mean, you
fun.
get it's really cool at first to be offered free stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'll never forget Kara bought a Jackery right when we just and a friend of mine had just purchased a Goal Zero, both the 500 watts versions of each, and I just thought, you know what, I'm gonna make a video and see which one will run a fridge the longest.
Mm.
And so I did. We had a Dometic fridge, and I put both of them on it and see which one ran the longest, at different temperature settings. And the Jackery won. Um, what I didn't know was at that time, Jackery was having a sale.
Mm.
And so just a couple weeks after I created the video, Jackery had this sale, and people started researching them. And that single video that became my top video for a long time. That
Wow.
video blew up. And so the next thing I know, I'm waking up to emails from companies in China, because that's when they're working, is when you're sleeping. So I would wake up in the
That's
morning
right.
and my inbox would be filled with offers from companies wanting to send me stuff. And at first they're like, whoa, this is so cool. Yes,
Right.
yes, I would love to. Yes, 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 yes. And the next thing I know, the house is filled with all this stuff that now I've committed to making a video for.
Right.
And I'm like, and so it didn't take long for that to not be cool anymore.
You're like, that really sucks.
And I'm like, oh, now I'm obligated to do this. And,
Yeah.
and so now, so it starts out really cool, but it becomes overwhelming really fast. Um, but, so now 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 I ignore most of those emails because
Yeah.
I don't want it
So do
anymore.
you have a rule, for yourself or any guidelines? You're like, if a company sends you an email and they're like, "Hey, look, we want a review on this. We need it done in 2 weeks." Are you like, "No"? If you are interested, you'll be like, "I want to do it in like 2 months," or do you feel like you're that picky and choosy on equipment or gear, or not as
I mean,
much?
it just depends on what my schedule is and what the product is. If it's just, it has to be a product that I personally am very interested in.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So now, I mean, I literally wake up every day with offers for, yeah, there's so many different power station brands out now. I mean, you just search Amazon and there's hundreds of different brands. And I wake up every morning to offers like, hey, we want to send you this X power station and this power station. Um, and I don't need a power station anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I have plenty. So I don't care. I've really cut back on how many I review because I used to review them all the time, and I started becoming known as the power station guy, and I don't want to be the power station guy.
Right. Yeah.
Um, Same thing with fridges. So it just depends. If it's something that I personally am interested in, and I'm like, wow, yeah, that product looks really cool. I want to check that out. Um, then I'll say yeah, and then if depending on the timing of it, I'll just be honest and say yeah, I can't do it that fast. I could get it done
Mm-hmm.
by here, and just tell them, just let them know.
Cool. Yeah, especially with all the new products coming out that are very innovative. And I like whenever people, that have been doing it, they're the ones that create some of the coolest stuff because they see a problem and then they'll find that solution. The only thing that sucks is is the price point a lot of times because they're not mass produced.
Right.
So that's another thing. People always talk about the Overland taxes, which yes, there's a fair share of that, but I think for the most part, it's a lot of things that are not mass produced in China for the biggest point of it. And plus, if
Yeah.
it's convenient
And
and handy, people are going to buy it.
well, and then you've got, I mean, there's so many new companies that are coming out, and you can tell, they're all importing their stuff from China.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at the rooftop tent market. I mean, how many different versions of the um, roof nest falcon wedge tent are there that look very similar?
Mm-hmm.
So they either copy the design or they're made in the same factory and they may have slightly different fabric and stuff. I mean, look at the popularity now. I've got the Morphlate twin air compressor. I love it, but it looks identical to the orange Napa version of it. It looks identical to
Yeah,
the Thor's Lightning. It looks identical to. There's a
the
couple
stop and
other
go or whatever. Yeah.
different brands that are using what looks like the exact same compressor, and I haven't personally opened the internals to check them out. They look identical on the outside except for the paint. So, you know, assume what you want. But there's so many companies that can now just import all these things coming from China, and boom, I have an Overland shop, or I'm a new
Yeah.
Overland company. So there's the innovators that are really trying to do new things, and then there's I think just jumping on the bandwagon and
Yeah.
bringing in the you know imported. Everybody's got the same air compressor kind of thing now, or recovery gear, traction boards, whatever. So there's a little bit of both. But I
Yeah.
really get excited when I see a company thinking outside the box and doing something different. Um,
Yeah.
and we're seeing that now. Like what you can the companies that are making their own um, thinking things through with their rooftop tent.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you've got God, what's that one? It's stupid expensive. Red Tail? Is it Red Tail? It's like
I'm
a
not sure.
hard shell carbon fiber. Every wall is hard, but it's like a $20,000 rooftop tent, which is
Oh, is that the one, the
ridiculous.
hard sides that fold
Yeah,
in?
it's got the hard sides that kind of fold in on each other and then
Yeah,
pop it
that's
up, and
crazy.
it's
Mm-hmm.
hard sided, which is awesome and innovative.
Yeah.
Um, right now, it's ridiculously expensive. There's another company, Intrepid, that has a wedge, but it has a second pivot point, so that when it doesn't just open like that, it opens and folds that way. So you have a ton more headroom
Mm-hmm.
for the exact same footprint on your vehicle, but you get a ton
Right.
more headroom with that tent. And I just think that's really cool. Like
It
that's
is.
something useful.
Those are, and for me, I've got it's a Desert Armor. It's a clamshell style where it just lifts up
Hmm.
and pops out on the other side. But I
Yeah.
can't run an awning or anything on it because it's a low profile. It sits on that Prinsu rack, and it's just in the way. So like the 4x4 Colorado, and I think 230 has one now where it kind of lifts up on the side
Hmm.
and then over to
Yeah.
where you could run an awning for that reason.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool.
Yeah. And it gives you just a little bit more headroom back there. Um,
Hmm.
and just gives you a little bit more extra space, which is,
Right.
if you spend any time, especially in the hard shells, um, the soft shells seem to be a little more roomier on the inside because of how they're designed. The hard shells, which are I definitely
Uh,
prefer, but you're a little more cramped in there. Um, so anything like that that just pops up gives you a little extra headroom or a little extra foot space is nice.
it does help. Um, are there any tips or tricks you would give to anyone out there who's maybe started out or they've been in it for a while and they're just kind of in a rut? Maybe not necessarily as in they don't know what to do, but for me, finding organization was a huge win for me and my wife because I just throw stuff in there and I'm pretty simple. But once you start
Hmm.
adding your family to it, it's a lot more complex. But is there any kind of tips and tricks as far as I guess your loadout situation that maybe prior to where because your rig's pretty much everything's got a purpose right now, but
Yeah,
maybe
my gladiator's dialed.
yeah,
Everything there has a purpose. Um, I think the organization part is a big deal. Um, Having your gear easily accessible, that I would get so frustrated and having to pull out multiple totes just to get to the tote that's in the back. And then once I
yeah,
opened the tote, what I needed was in the bottom of that tote. So I being able to be organized is makes a big difference when you're on a multi-day trip. Um, so that's big. Be conscientious of the weight. My Gladiator is heavy, and I'm starting to look for ways that I can cut down on some weight on the Gladiator because I can feel it when I'm on the trail. Um, so be conscientious of your weight as you add weight to your vehicle. You may need upgrades that you don't think about, like brakes. Um, you may not have really significantly larger tires that would require a re-gear, but adding all that extra weight, a re-gear would help
hmm
carry that weight around. Stuff like that. So organization, weight, um, keep it as simple as you can. Um, I did a video not too long ago on useless overlanding gear, and it's mostly just stuff that people are packing that
hmm
they're not using. So be conscientious. When you come back from a trip, go through your stuff and see, did I use this? If yes, keep it. If no, give a serious look into not taking it next time.
right.
And yeah, not taking as much stuff. So I think that um,
Those are big ones for sure. A lot of people they just assume that it's like going to your car to go to the movies. It's not going to be like that. You're going to have your sleeping gear, your cooking gear, all that crap in there. So it's like it could become overwhelming. Especially on your
oh
first
yeah,
few trips. You
yeah,
find your groove.
and it's definitely different. I like you said earlier, the term overlanding gets misused a lot,
Hmm
and people now could just go out, setting up base camp for the weekend and then wheeling all weekend
hmm
and call it overlanding, and it's not. That's not
Right.
what overlanding is. Um, but there's a radical difference in how you set up a rig if you're, just going out and setting up base camp for the weekend, or if you are living out of your vehicle, on a multi-day trip.
hmm
Those are two different things. And, you can, dump all the stuff in the back of your rig, go set up camp for the weekend and dump it all out, and you're fine,
hmm
because you are just living in one spot for the weekend. But if you're going out and setting up and tearing down camp every single day, living out of your rig, that's when those other considerations really come into play. And being organized and not carrying too much gear and stuff um, really becomes significant in your
Yeah.
enjoyment of the activity.
I would definitely agree with that, and that's taken me. I've got a really small. Mine's a third gen Forerunner, so it's a small platform anyway. So like
Mm-hmm.
the
Call it
available
preferred
space
gyms.
in there. Me too, and I've got a drawer system in the back, which has been a huge. I we say game changer a lot. It's a game changer because I've got
Yeah.
everything where
I
anything
hate the
is, I know
phrase,
right
but
where it's
use the
at.
phrase all the time. Yeah.
It makes sense. So, but anyway, that was like my biggest thing was organization. And then once we got the rooftop tent, I finally found that a self-inflating or blow-up mattress works best for me in that situation.
Hmm.
Before it was like the factory stupid 2-inch foam thing that came with junk, and then we got
Hmm.
like 3-inch memory foam, which was too big because the
Hmm.
tent would not want to buckle. So like the
Oh yeah,
inflatable that
those
took us so long.
those memory
Finally,
foam those memory foam inflating mattresses like X-Beds, the big name brand. Um,
yeah,
they are so
fantastic.
comfortable and they pack down so small. And they're just I prefer the mattresses that we have in our tents better than I do the mattress in my bedroom. They're just
Yeah.
so comfortable.
And there's no need for you to be uncomfortable in any of this. And I
No,
don't know why people always argue the fact, like, oh, you're bringing that. It's like, well, yeah, I want to be comfortable. It's like,
yeah. I mean, I say it all the
I'm,
time. I'm not going out. I'm going out to thrive. I'm not going out to play some
yeah,
self-inflicted version of Survivor out here. I'm not,
right, some bush
I'm
cave.
not, yeah, I'm not trying to eat grubs and, you know, make my shelter out
Right.
of, you know, trees and mud. Um, I'm going out here to have a good
That's
time
you do you,
and thrive.
man.
Hey, that's great. That those survival minimalist people have at it.
We're coming up on an hour, but I'm not wanting to shut down just yet. I want to pick your brain on, and this is going to be very tough. Let's say top 3 places that you've visited this past year,
Oh gosh,
physical year.
I've been
Um,
all over the place
top
in 2023.
3 places. Yeah, you have Pacific Northwest. Where you been down in? You went to Utah too, didn't you? Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, been to Utah twice. Um, Colorado twice. Gosh, top three. I mean, for 2023 would have to be. I mean, you can never go wrong in Colorado. That's always Colorado's always incredible. Um, Utah, same thing. You can't go wrong in Utah unless you go in July or August. Then that's dumb. Because I've done that. And Oregon was, oh my gosh, Oregon blew me away. That was our longest trip, and
Mm.
I was there for 3 weeks. Well, our trip was 3 weeks. I was probably 2 weeks in Oregon, and barely scratched the surface of what Oregon has to offer. I mean, there's so much public land. There are so many unique and diverse ecosystems in Oregon. Um, you drive a few hours and the terrain and the environment is completely different than where you came from. That Oregon is definitely a favorite of mine. It is so cool, and I can't
Sweet.
wait to go back. Like I'm already excited for, Overland Expo Pacific Northwest for 2024 because we'll be there, and we'll
Yeah.
probably do what we did this year and take a good 2 weeks around it, 2 to 3 weeks, and go up there and explore more, and
Very cool.
go to the areas that we didn't get to, and probably even then will not come close to scratching the surface.
Sweet. Me and my wife, my sister lives out in Oregon, and they're more on the coast side, Central Coast, and they had this old crappy Cherokee, but it was a 2-door Cherokee, so it was kind of cool. And this was probably 8 years ago, and my sister's was like, "Oh yeah, it's my brother-in-law's just beater rig." They're like, "Yeah, here's the keys. Go drive around, go explore." So me and my wife did, and I'm like, "This is absolutely fantastic." And this was before I knew like overlanding or any of that car camping stuff, whatever you want to call it. But as soon as we got back home, we were kind of looking for like an old beater rig or something
Hmm.
like that. And then I found a 1994 runner, and that's how I got bit by that bug, and then just
Awesome.
kept snowballing and snowballing. So
Heck
I love
yeah.
the Pacific Northwest. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then Kara got to go into Northern California, which I didn't get to go. I didn't get to do because she stayed out there 3 weeks longer than I did.
Did she do the
Um,
Rubicon or anything?
no, she did not do the. There's no way she's doing the Rubicon without me.
Well, that's what
not
I was
gonna
gonna
happen.
say.
Yeah, no, no. She and her best friend Danielle, they were able to stay out there. I had to make the 3 day drive home by myself, and they got to stay out there and continue to explore some more of Oregon, and then went into the redwoods of Northern California and ended up in
Man,
the the Tahoe area of the Sierras, um, and just had a great time.
gorgeous.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so she has I guess yeah that would be the one key place she's been that I have not been to yet,
Very cool.
that I want to. 'Cause,
But it's gonna happen. It'll happen.
oh, absolutely.
So, what do you guys have planned for next year? Anything that's just gonna blow our minds? Anything
Well,
to
Kara, we've made this announcement. Kara and Danielle have officially entered, and will be team, is it 120? Team 120 in the Rebel Rally next year, next
nice
October. So they are competing in that. And if you don't know what the Rebel Rally is, it is a um, off-road navigation rally competition. That's the longest one in the U.S. It lasts 8 days.
for
It's
females
women
only,
only.
right?
Yep,
Yeah.
women only. Last 8 days, 2,500 kilometers, um, and they are allowed no electronics, like no smartwatches. They, when the race starts, you put your phone in a box and you get it back 8 days later. Um, well, the race is 8 days. It's 10 days, but the race is 8 days. Um, but at the like your navigation in your vehicle, that's completely covered up and taped up, and you can't touch it. So it's all paper maps, compass,
Nice.
plotting points with a ruler on a map to scale, going out and getting different checkpoints each day, and it's through there's timed enduros with it.
Are they
Um,
are they
it is an
capping the
intense.
event to like a certain amount of people?
I don't
You know?
I don't know. They had 65 teams this year, and that seemed
Holy
like a lot.
smokes!
This year was
That
their
sounds like a
eighth year.
lot.
Yeah, this year was their 8th year to do it, and of course it grows each year.
Wow.
Um, I don't know how many teams they'll allow next year, but Kara's in. Kara and Danielle are officially
Sweet.
in. They
Very
are
cool.
put down the deposit and have a team number, and they are officially in. So they'll
Sweet.
be one of the rookie teams in 2024. So they have a lot of training that has to be done.
Yeah.
Because desert driving, Kara's an excellent driver, but basically no experience in the desert.
Yeah.
So they'll be attending various training classes on desert driving, lots of training classes on navigation, how to do the whole compass paper map ruler thing, because that's what it's all about. I mean, the navigation piece pretty much makes or break you,
That's so
in the
cool.
Rebel
I love it.
Rally. So and Kara's the driver, Danielle's the navigator. Our plan, I know, like they have a training in Arizona, um,
Hmm.
in in January, I think late January. Is that right? Yeah. And so, and then they're going to have other trainings out in California and stuff. So I think some of our travels, or at least I know some of our travels, or some of my travels next year are going to coincide with their travels for this training. So like
Nice.
this is a 4 or 5 day training in Arizona, that they're going to. 7 days, excuse me, 7 day training in Arizona. So, oh yeah, it goes into California too, in sand dunes. But I am going to go. So my plan for that trip is I'm going to go out there too. And while they're doing their training thing for 7 days, I'm gonna go spend 7 days in Arizona. And
Okay.
I've spent very little time in Arizona. Just I think we've ran one trail, Snebly Hill, outside of Sedona.
I was go- I was gonna
Um,
say you were gonna go to Baja, Mexico, or something.
oh, I mean, one of these days we have an open invitation from Marco to go with him, but even he says
Sweet.
now's not a good time to go to Baja. Um,
Oh,
so
really?
yeah,
Just the
just because of
cartel and stuff,
yeah,
or what? Oh,
yeah,
no
it's kind
kidding.
of dangerous right now. So even he's not going down there. Um, but that's going to be part of my plans, is to piggyback off of some of those trips and go see some new areas like
Fun.
Arizona. But I know back to Arizona. we have plans to be at Expo West, and we want to do with Expo West like what we did with Pacific Northwest last year, and take a couple weeks
Yeah.
to go explore the area. Since we've got to go out there anyway, we will take extended time and we will go to um, the Pacific Northwest and spend more time in Oregon. I mean, the odds of us ending up in Moab are probably pretty high. The odds of us ending up in Colorado are pretty high. Um,
Yeah.
so, some things we don't have fully planned out yet, but some things we know we know we're gonna go, but we're not exactly sure what that looks like yet.
Sweet.
So I
Grand
just,
open.
yeah, I mean, we had so many events this year, I had to just turn some down because, um, like we were supposed to go to Core up in Michigan, which I've been
Hmm.
to twice and love the area, absolutely love the area. But we were just so busy with other events this year that for us to go and do that event, it was going to require, leaving on Thursday, driving 17 hours, just boom, straight to get there, being there for the event for 2 days, and then boom, driving 17 hours back home. And
Yeah.
that does not sound like fun.
Yeah.
When I've been before, I've taken a couple extra days and we've had time to, to be more, had some more freedom while we were there. And so I'm going to try to do probably less events like that next
Hmm.
year. Uh, and so that the ones that we do go to, we're going to take extra time to experience the area.
Good.
So
Good for you.
that's the plan.
Sweet. Well, anything else you want to touch on? We've been talking for an hour, which is fantastic. But
It's
is there
been
anything
great.
else you? Yeah, man, it's been fun.
You
Is there
actually,
anything you want to kind of touch on?
you actually asked the question earlier, and we didn't actually get to it. You asked about starting a YouTube channel.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
um, and advice. Um, the biggest advice for that is you have to just do it because that's what you love doing. I cannot fathom anybody starting a YouTube channel with the intention of I'm gonna grow it, we're gonna get monetized, and we're gonna make money with YouTube because it takes so long to get to that just starting point of 1,000 subscribers. That takes forever. I could see it being faster if you don't have a job and you can just boom start cranking out content and do that. But you gotta just do it. You gotta love filming and you gotta love editing when you get back home. Because if you don't love
Hmm.
those two things, you're gonna hate life. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like I was out, I was on the trail this morning and had intentions of running two trails. One, yeah, both that I hadn't been on in a while. But I just had so much fun filming this one trail this morning that I didn't have time to get to the other one. And that was totally okay. Because I
Yeah.
was, the filming process for me is just soaking it in because I am constantly looking for, different angles to set up cameras and looking at the surroundings to try to get, cool shots and stuff. And so I think the filming process for me gets me more into the area because I'm looking for those things.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and so I was doing that this morning and the fall colors were great. So I was constantly just trying to capture the different things and having a blast doing it. And I didn't get to the other trail. And that's fine.
Yeah.
I didn't care because I had so much fun just filming the one.
So the videoing that you did today and yesterday, is that coming out next Friday?
Yeah, that will be next Friday.
All right. Well, that'll be the day after today's recording because this is going to be out next Thursday.
Oh, okay.
So, guys,
Yeah.
go over to Ozark Overland Adventures and check out that video that he's talking about with the fall foliage down in the Ozarks.
Yeah, it'll be
Check
out
it
next
out.
Friday. Yeah.
Cool, man.
Yeah, I've currently got, well, one's shot and come and done, comes out tomorrow. But then I've got 2 weeks worth of footage done. And I just got
Sweet.
to edit for the next 2 weeks. So, yay.
Well, how can people follow you, do all the things? We'll put them all in the show notes below, guys. But, Matt, how can people follow along on your adventures?
Yeah, it's Ozark Overland Adventures on all the things on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook. And Phil, everybody's welcome to send messages to the Instagram and Facebook, and me or my wife will get them and eventually reply once we see them. Um, but yeah, that's where to get us.
Very cool. Matt, thanks for coming on the show. Guys,
Thanks
if
for
you
having me.
haven't- Yeah, I think it's fun talking, and everybody can kind of see the behind the scenes stuff, from your perspective and kind of where you came from and where it's going. And I think
Man,
you're doing a fantastic job.
it is a crazy life, and I wouldn't trade it for anything right now. It is so cool. I feel like I'm retired, but I'm working my butt off. But it's fun work, so it doesn't feel
It's
like
fun
work.
Love it. Cool, man. Well, guys, go check out his channel. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you back here Monday for Overland Shenanigans. Bye-bye.